Walmart company said on Tuesday that the higher cost and supply chain constraints will profit margins, and it slashed its profit outlook for the year, signaling that it expects inflation to continue hurt its business. According to the Walmart CEO, Doug McMillon, we've been seeing countless Walmart surging down. It says here that results drove Walmart stock down 11.4% on Tuesday for the worst day since 1987. Now, they reflected back on 1987 expectations in terms of the U.S. economy and U.S. GDP rates are not keeping up with inflation. Rent is going up, home prices are going up, diesel and gas prices are going up. The national average for a gallon, $4.56 a gallon of gasoline price, $4 in all 50 states even for the first time. Senators in some areas like California is way more than above $5. Inflation is just contained right now, and it's so obvious what's causing it. It's the policies of Biden administration that brought about an absolute war on the fossil fuel industry here in America from the day they came into office. He criticized beauty on the one hand and turns around and cancels a million-acre lease and Alaska Kiss project in the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, many diesel truck drivers have provided information in terms of what they are seeing from the inside, and if there's diesel gas shortage, that's going to affect our gas prices, it's going to affect gas availability. We can see that Walmart stock is currently trading at $122.60 as of today. We can see here that back on only 1 month ago, Walmart stock was trading at $156 per share. If the sales situation, we are hearing about different parts of the community where there are amplified sales situations and there are multiple Walmarts coming down. Pat Williams says, nothing will help us now. Everyone has to stop spending money and stop driving for a week or two. Look, no money being spent means that they don't get any money. They need to suffer like us. Also, all manufacturers need to shut down too. Everything has to be shut down and you can do it. The new world order could be more individuals standing up to big corporations and saying enough is enough. I'm not going to spend my money here with inflation hitting me in the face. And or could be just inflation. The general population expects that. There are shortages due to China and shutdowns due to supply chain disruption that we've already seen that we have not yet recovered from. So the average American, the average consumer knows that there are shortages. There are legitimate shortages. We've got chip shortages, gas shortages, and diesel shortages. So it stands to reason that if there are shortages, there are labor supply constraints, then prices are going to be higher as basically it's just plain old supply and demand. But then the question becomes, how legitimate are the shortages? And are the larger corporations taking advantage of the consumer? But Williams seems to think that the solution could be to have everyone stop spending money now and stop driving for a week or two. If the demand goes down, basic supply would have to be on a rest basis. So basically tighten up the poor strings and essentially just stop spending and make the corporations suffer. Now, if this were to be adopted on a widespread and everyone just said, we are not going to buy gas. Well, think about if you don't buy gas. That means if you have to drive to work, that means you are not going to work. Because if you are not going to buy gas because you decided not to spend any money, you see where I'm going with this, right? So it might possibly harm yourself. And it's assuming that you have a job, you have to drive to work, and you was almost forced to buy gas. So this could potentially drive down demand and cause the corporations to feel bound to extend what we do. If you bought food, let's just say you stocked up in advance, you fill your pantry with all sorts of foods. You could avoid spending money not going to the grocery stores for a period of time unless you are growing the food in the backyard. Maybe you have a large property where you can grow your own foods. Maybe grow your own fruits and vegetables. you can get away to some extent. Maybe you have chickens, maybe you have a farm, maybe I'm just trying to see how you can kind of get away with not spending money for a long period of time. It's kind of difficult. So, Joe Biden says firms like Amazon are behind inflation. Jeff Bezos disagrees and goes on to say that Amazon.com on Friday accused President Joe Biden of misdirection on Twitter in response to the U.S. leader's tweet, saying inflation could be tamed by making wealthy corporations pay their fair share. So, basically, Biden's argument mind the administration's arguments that large wealthy corporations are not paying their fair share of taxes, and so that's why the American people are faced with such great levels of inflation. Now, the exchange began Friday evening with Biden's tweet, quote, "You want to bring down inflation? The wealthiest corporation pay their fair share," and quote Amazon, which paid $3.7 billion in U.S. taxes in 2021 on local revenue of $469 billion, is often criticized for not contributing enough to federal levies given its size. Jeff Bezos, the world's second largest man, thinks the first largest person is Elon Musk now, who was often held up as a poster boy for income inequality and wasn't ready to sit by and start taking hit for inflation as well. The newly created information board should review this tweet, or maybe they need to form a new non-sequester board instead. This was Bezos tweeted, related referring to Department of Homeland Security's Disinformation Governance Board, announcing in April, quote, "Raising corporate taxes is just as fine to discuss timing inflation. It's critical to discuss merging them together. We are seeing all sorts of tech shops getting just crushed right now. Even the e-commerce stores that were dominating during the pandemic, the Dow Jones fell a half percentage point better than this day, but still negative. This comes as gas prices hit another record high. ABC News has a closer look at this growing volatility. Some economists are talking about the risk of another recession. So, 18,000 Americans have applied for unemployment last week. So we are seeing Amazon stocks getting hit. We saw Wayfair selling getting hit on Twitter because Elon Musk is asking a lot more questions. Now, we have that he presented his offer to buy Twitter. Bezos and Amazon were frequent Twitter sketches of former President Donald Trump, who often tried to cleanse critical investigative stories by the Bezos of Washington Post by attributing it to his personal feud with Bezos. In addition, higher gas prices and higher diesel prices are causing a spike in inflation. Teachers in Whitehall is laws tapping emergency diesel reserve to ease prices by Gasoline. The Whitehall is considering an emergency declaration that would enable President Joe Biden to release diesel from a rarely used stockpile in the bid to address a major supply crunch. This comes from a senior Whitehall official. The deliberations about tapping the Northeast home heating reserve underscore the level of concern inside the House regarding the prices of diesel. Diesel is a vital fuel for the U.S. economy, powering not only farm and construction equipment, but the trucks, trains, boats, and all sorts of vehicles and mechanisms that move goods across the country. Skyrocketing diesel prices are likely to get passed along to families, contributing to America's world inflation increasing for decades. So, it looks like the Biden administration is considering tapping into some diesel stockpiles that we have. The question is, will this force the Biden administration to consider opening up the Keystone Pipeline? There's been a lot of debate about that, but I'm really curious to see if we are going to see more attempts to kind of open up oil from within our country and US soil. If we didn't export as much oil as oil to other countries, the argument that I'm hearing often and it makes sense is that we could potentially see much lower gas prices at the gas pump here in the US.